Guys, I just had a mind-blowing mastermind with Kenneth Yu, who knows all about copywriting, how to scale high-ticket offers, how to create the irresistible offer to get people to buy. Come join us on the Coach Yu Show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have a very special behind-the-scenes guest, Kenneth Yu of Holy Grail Copywriting. And holy moly, we've been spending time talking about what it's like to be able to drive leads, drive sales for service, personal story-oriented sellers. And Kenneth has done this for McDonald's, Fujitsu, all sorts of brands. He was so successful, he sold his agency a few years ago to be able to help other folks like us, whether we're agency owners, service providers, e-commerce, even the local dentist, freelancers, be able to drive more, especially during the pandemic. Kenneth, it is so awesome to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. And it's always great to talk to my fellow you. We both share the same surname, which is rare.
Is it you or is it me or is it you?
Yes,
you.
and that all the time. Yeah.
So you and I both serve a lot of service providers. What is it that, and a lot of us think, wow, getting McDonald's as a client, how do you do something like that?
When it comes to the corporate market, especially the big, my average clientele was like $1 billion in sales, when I had the agency and everything. I realized that a lot of it lay in relationships. Like the greater the scale, the more in tune you need to be with the actual decision maker in such an agency. So it's relationship plus results.
Right.
So you do results for smaller clients, and then you get to know the decision maker. And the decision maker, basically, if you don't have a relationship with the decision maker, they need to evaluate your results first before they let you in. Because every decision maker, in terms of their mindset, is how do I look good in front of my boss? And how do I, with this budget, push it to you or push it to a service provider or an agency and be able to sleep at night. Go home at 6 p.m. Even if the budget is $1 million budget, it's not their own money. But they want to be seen as good stewards to the company. And if you fulfill that criteria, it opens the doors. Yeah.
Yeah. In corporate, all about the relationships and risk avoidance. But what were you doing for McDonald's?
So funny enough, I was reducing their turnover rate. Like they have an attrition rate, like the company service provider turnover rate. So the employee turnover rate was like 120% or something. So they were losing more people than they could keep. So I helped them reframe the conversation in the onboarding process, because the way they onboarded people was so uninspiring, you lose them from the start. Like every new employee that goes in, they didn't even have PowerPoint slides during that time. I mean, we talk about how PowerPoint slides were boring, but they didn't even have that. There's a flip book that was 20 years old, and they were just reading from the flip book. Like it was just an endurance test. And then we reframe it, we add some snazzy graphics, we made it more emotional, which is key in everything, right? You just need to hit the emotional buttons. It's not a logical thing most of the time. You need to make people feel good to join your company, right? And then that's what we did. And that actually became one of my biggest clients.
How do you then manage multiple billion-dollar clients like a McDonald's and a Fujitsu and other folks? How do you scale a team? How did you manage your time, right? That's a lot of relationship management. That's a lot of meetings, right? When you're dealing with corporate clients.
Yeah. So in terms of scaling for the agency side, I think the most important thing is you're a business development person when it comes to relationships. But in my case, because the team is smaller, we don't take on that many clients. Because let's say if I do an SEO project, it's $1 billion company, I can charge $25,000 a month for SEO. Which means I only need like 4 or 5 clients to put my portfolio, and that's it. So I don't need it to scale that big. The thing with corporate agency is that the complication actually lies in the fact that the contract size is only about a yearly basis. Gone are the days where it's like 5 years. You have a contract for 5 years. Now it's a yearly thing.
Right.
So in a sense, scaling it upwards, like it's good for cash flow, but for achieving more scale, it's a little bit harder to do, simply because your contracts don't last very long, and it takes you another 1.5 years to get those contracts in the first place.
Yeah. So you have to make a lot of money to justify getting it in there. There's a huge cost. How do you decide how much to price?
I learned something from Dan Kennedy, and then he basically said, you just price whatever you like. Basically, can you price something without your face giving it away? It's too expensive. So can you price something that you're comfortable with, even though it's high? And that's what I did. And I think another thing about relationships, right, is how likable you are. And I had a case, and this was $1 billion telco brand. I sent in my proposal. The head of brand called me and said that, dude, your pricing is too cheap. Can you double it? If not, it wouldn't go through. And people would think, can you just double your pricing and make yourself look legit? So it's
for those are Western clients that are asking that.
No. Eastern clients, as in Asian clients, which is rare because they usually push your price down. But these guys just want to jack up the pricing for me, which is insane.
So tell me about your sales process on how you, before, when you had the agency, as you were getting leads, how you would close these deals. And would you just go straight to $25,000 a month? Would you do an audit? Would you do some kind of hourly thing? At what point do you draw the line between having meetings for free and then coming in and saying, okay, it's going to be this much?
Okay. So I take a more, I guess, prescriptive approach to selling big clients. That means I offer help upfront. I should tell them, okay, this is the strategy, and this is what we did for our other clients, the results. And then we basically tell them, okay, this is we either do how much we charge. Usually pricing might be a second meeting, depending on the client itself. Because a lot of times it just fits whatever budget. Like you tell them the pricing, or usually the first meeting, tell them the pricing. And by then, they probably want to work with you already. And that is just a matter of how can they fit it into carve what budget for what service provider. And then it's just a matter of just signing and going through the procurement process.
So is it more a matter of you have standard pricing and packages, or are you going from their budget?
I have a variable pricing that has a minimum and maximum. So I do package pricing. I don't do per hour. So I don't have a per hour rating. Although some people want a per hour rating or per hour pricing, I give them that because it's to satisfy their procurement process. But they will give you package pricing like 25,000 a month, 18,000 a month, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a bit about the McDonald's story because I think it's quite instructive. Because they asked me in for a $50,000 pitch, and 50,000 pitch is like, why do you want to pitch for 50,000, right? But we went through the pitch. But I came up with a $500,000 contract. So I actually 10x during a 45-minute meeting. Yeah, I went from 50,000 to 500,000. So I'm just going to tell you a bit on how I did that, and basically just to go deeper into the process. And so, they had this problem, which is the attrition rate is so high. I think the key is empathy with your client, not just in terms of emotions, but in terms of really knowing the actual problem. And to know the actual problem and the pain point is to journey with the client or really go in depth. So I went for all the meetings. I actually went for the onboarding process. We were seated in the audience. We endured it. It was a 3-4 hours of endurance. It was an endurance test. But it gave me the perspective that when I went in there, because the reason why they wanted to do a $50,000 thing was because they just wanted to do an onboarding video, and they thought that would solve all their problems. Because that was from the client perspective, and they're probably not on ground as much as they need to, or they don't see the fresh perspective. Usually you need an outside eye. That's the value of consultants, right? So because of that, I basically told them, look, you have this problem. You have this series of issues that an onboarding video is not going to fix. So let me tell you what the real problems are. And I empathize with you because it's really painful that you have these issues. I can help you fix that. But to help you fix that, I need to propose a more extensive solution, which I have here. And this is the extensive solution. I usually give the solution a name. The other tip is I usually give it a proprietary name, meaning this is a thing-boarding proprietary process. For corporates, they like jargon, right? So you just add jargon to everything. An acronym, yes. And basically, this is the proprietary process. We have success with it. And this is what we're going to do. This is the samples we have of what we can do. But this is how much we are going to charge. But the one important thing is basically for these companies is how much are you going to save if you pay me? So you actually nail it down in terms of the nuts and bolts, in terms of the numbers. So you basically tell them, hey, each 10% of attrition rate costs you about $1 million a year. And I actually get these numbers. I actually talk to the people to get those numbers. Like, it costs you $1 million a year because you need to onboard new people, scale, recruitment ads, and all those things. So if I can save even 20-30% a year, and you save $2 to $3 million a year, and you pay me only $500,000 one time, isn't it a good investment?
Yeah. So you're building a financial model that ties to a business case that justifies the $500,000. What was the actual result after you went through your process?
They didn't get back to me because the whole thing switched. So as in, we closed the deal, we delivered the results, and everyone left.
That happens a lot in corporate.
It happens a lot. So a lot of times with corporates, especially if you're doing like a multi-year accountability thing, is very challenging because the turnover rate, even on the C level, is insane. Like, they don't stay long. They stay 2-3 years, and they just move on. And then they sometimes take you with them, which is good. So, a few of them were like, okay, I'm in now an oil and gas company. Do you want to come work with us and all those things? But as a result, a lot of the accountability is lost.
Isn't that funny, Kenneth? The irony that you came in to solve a retention issue, but the people that hired you didn't stay?
Yeah, that's the reality of the market right now, right? The millennial, I want to follow my bliss or something. They just move.
So you shifted from big corporate deals. So you shifted from big corporate. Yeah. You shifted from big corporate deals, 25,000 plus a month, to then helping people that are freelancers be able to build their Holy Grail offer. Talk about that shift and why you did that.
Very simply, I was burned out because, as you rightfully point out in our conversation, I had to manage all the relationships. And again, because there's a merry-go-round in terms of the corporate, that means they leave every year. And the minute they leave every year, you lose the deal. Because a new decision maker wants to bring in the new people. I mean, if you go to any M&A deal, it's the same thing, right? You merge, and then the new guy brings in that team.
Yep.
And then that is what happened. So it was a perfect storm of a few things. So basically, the deals were lucrative, but it was harder and harder to get them because people shifted around. But also, technology disrupts industries, right? So wherever you could charge, we used to charge maybe 30, 40,000 a website. And then I was talking to IBM a few years ago. Like, they wanted websites, landing pages. And this was IBM. And they were like, oh, our Indian team can do it for $3,000. Why are you charging us $30,000? $3,000 and you have so many mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Right? And this is IBM. This is freaking IBM. And they have $1 billion budget. I said, no, we're doing for $3. All because there's a disruption where, the outsourcers come in and new technology to do website building and all those things. And we decided that our margins were getting smaller and smaller. And the whole agency space in Malaysia, at least, were facing a whole bunch of issues because margins were smaller and smaller and everyone was doing their merry-go-round. So one of the companies, I had multiple agencies, mind you, competitor agencies. So basically, I just started a few agencies because I got greedy because if you service $1 billion telco, you cannot service another $1 billion telco.
Yeah. So that's a conflict agency, right? So you started a conflict agency, what is called in the industry.
So just
Omnicom has multiple agencies because they have clients that compete against each other. So they create what's called a conflict agency to service both sides. Service Coke and service Pepsi.
Yes, correct. So that's what I did. And it's actually a lucrative model. It's just a very intense model because not only did we did a conflict agency, we scaled to multiple countries. So we just scaled, to Singapore, and we were supposed to go to Australia, Indonesia, and all these places. And what I realized is scaling is bleeding. And the lesson for me is my at that time, my expertise level was going from 0 to 7 figures, but not 7 figures to 8, 9, where you need, to manage cash flow effectively and not to scale so fast. I think the key was I got bored with the business and I just wanted to push really, really fast. And I realized that boring is actually sexy in business. The more boring your business, the more cash flow you make, the more you actually make. Business is actually boring. Good business, sound business is actually boring. But I don't. So that was a lesson for me. I got burned. I managed to cash out a little bit. And the funny thing is, after I cashed out my agency, I got even more offers coming in, more people wanting the agency service, even though I didn't have the agency anymore. So I just assembled a freelance team, did it. And then, so I was living semi-retired for a few years, living off those contracts. And then I was just there were a few things in my soul that I wanted to pursue that I didn't get to pursue because I was doing this agency, and agency isn't my passion. So I basically just did it because the market said so. Like, I just give you a short origin story how I started, and then the agency was in the middle, and then I sort of returned to where I started. So I started as a copywriter for Ogilvy. Then I was a copy chief of Mind Valley. You may have heard of Mind Valley.
Oh yeah, huge.
Yeah. So I was the original copy chief of Mind Valley, doubled their sales. I was the one to set up all the funnel systems.
Yeah.
So I was one of the pioneers of sales funnels in the world, like with Mind Valley and all those things. Set up the email systems, the funnels, etc. I created something called Twitter Salvation System, which was the first Twitter marketing information product of its time. That was about 13 years ago. And my product was to fund a wedding. Like, we wanted to get married, didn't have much money. So I fell in love with this girl 13 years ago. So we used that launch. We broke even in 5 minutes, made money in half an hour, and we financed the wedding in under a month. And we financed the honeymoon as well. That's how we started. So we started as accidental information publishers. And what I realized after, just a few years, I reflected. I just turned 40 maybe last week. I was just reflecting on this whole journey, and I realized I had the first Twitter marketing info product on the market, and I had the second email copywriting product on the market. And you know how email copywriting is so huge now and everything.
Yeah, now it is.
Now it is. Like, it wasn't big 14 years ago. Like, I couldn't make many sales with email copywriting. People didn't see the value. But I was the OG in that space. And that was something that there were two traits that I wanted to return to. One was the info publishing space, to push and see how far, because I was a pioneer in certain of these markets. And number two, as a copywriter. So I was in Mind Valley, doubled their sales, everything. I was thinking to myself, I didn't have an opportunity to push for copywriting gigs with the top guys. Like I don't know how great I can be as a copywriter until I push a direct response copywriter. And so that's what I did. And info publishing and direct response copywriting go hand in hand. So the last few years, what has transpired is I returned to info publishing last year and created a movement. Like, somebody just wrote an entire folk tale about my teachings. Some people have written books. Like, I have this cottage industry of people around my teachings, because that's cool. And then the last few years, what has also happened is I started writing copy for the VSL market, mainly like ClickBank style video sales letters. And last year, I had the number one BizOp offer in the whole of ClickBank.
Wow.
It was top 5 in the whole of ClickBank for a time. That means I was competing with all the supplement offers. And the year before that, I had one of the top spirituality offers on the market. So basically, I took the copywriting and whatever experience I had over the years, I channeled it into these VSLs, just so I can use them as case studies and just as a vindication that what we call the Holy Grail strategies actually work. And it worked beautifully. So now we have the info publishing side, which feeds my soul. And I have my own VSL offer company. So I have supplements and info products that are going to launch soon as well.
And I've logged in and looked inside the Holy Grail Copywriting, and I see how well structured it is and how deep it is and the amount of detail you have. So that is incredible. Tell me, who's able to succeed by going through this training to be a copywriter? Because there's a lot of people, like before, when you ran an agency and you started to scale, there's one part you didn't mention that I wanted to hear more about, which is how did you find other people to be able to do the work for these other clients? Were they already great copywriters? Did you train them up on copywriting? Were there certain things that you were looking for so that you could build a series of agencies that were handling the clients and you knew that they could do the copywriting without you having to participate in every single deal? When
I was running SpurPress, the agency, which exists now as an info publisher, what I did was, when it comes to digital marketing, you have to realize not many people have prior experience. Like, the digital market is like, prior experience is overrated, because things keep changing.
Yeah.
It basically means that there has to be a training and learning culture that you need to establish in your company. And so what we did, we have culture and learning meetings every week. So we get people, we hire for more of culture fit. Of course, they need a little bit of skill, like you can't be unskilled, but experience for me was overrated. So we get people hungry to learn, hungry to fulfill the vision. Like, I think if you have a huge vision over either your life or your company's life, people are attracted to that vision. And then people are willing to work at whatever amounts for that vision, even if it's slightly lower, or like they don't go based on price alone. That means there's a mix of culture and vision and everything. And then we just train them. We just make sure we have a robust training program in place for everyone. I mean, it's not, in a sense, the training also keeps has to be updated as well because things keep changing. So we had that internal system in place. And then that's how we create the fulfillment. So, my web designers, because we were doing web design for a while as well, from the Philippines and all those things, and they were doing it for the smaller clients. But because of our learning methodology, they did work for, the McDonald's of the world and the Fujitsu's of the world. Like they were able to do big brand kind of stuff because of the training methodology. And some of them, when they left, they end up leaving for Dubai companies, like huge companies. And our training process was so good that I had people in the industry coming to me and saying, are you going to fire anyone? We want them. So the non-performers in my company ended up poached by everyone else. So they didn't even, so get this, these people are people like, I'm like, you can't work here because you're not fulfilling a certain criteria. Everybody else wants them in the industry.
Yeah, that's how you know you're good.
You know I'm good. And it's not just credit to me, it's credit to my wife and my business partner who put all this in place because she's the COO and she's the scaler and everything. And without her, we wouldn't achieve the success. But the part two of that question is basically now I flip that model on its head a little bit. Meaning, if you want to work with me and to work with SpurPress, you pay me. So that's part why I create the Holy Grail Copywriting program and all the other programs. And what has happened is basically people take the program and they pay, whatever amount for that program. Yeah. They fall in love with his teaching. They fall in love with the values. They fall in love with the vision. And then now I have this huge volunteer force that I can test. And whoever I test, I can either hire or do a performance-based thing with them. And so now I have a pick of copywriters and other. There are a few roles where that doesn't make sense. It's a financial, controller or something you just hire based on the job boards. But when it comes to creative kind of industries, I rather journey with you. Then I know you at your best and I know you at your worst. Actually, the very important thing is knowing people at their worst. Can you work with somebody at their worst? It applies to business partners, applies to team, applies to all those things. And now I have the journeying process that's sustainable because they pay me first. And it's not exploitative in the sense that the value I add in terms of the knowledge and everything is great. And I do open doors for them. So sometimes if they don't fit in within my offers, because my offers only cover a limited scope, I just say, okay, you can work for this other person and this other person.
Isn't that amazing? Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy because you've been training the whole time. When you were running an agency and scaling it, you had to train these other people. But like you said, you flipped it because initially you were paying them to train them and now they're paying you. What is the difference? Do you notice that they're more serious? Do you get a different kind of person? Do you see different kinds of retention? Do you see a higher success rate? What do you notice?
The dynamics is super different. I think it's in the Bible that says where your treasure is where your heart is, right? Like it's not the other way, right? It's not where your heart is where your treasure is. It's like where you put your money is where your affinity goes to. So if you put money with me, your affinity goes to me. Because if I put money with you, my affinity goes to you and you have no affinity for me because your affinity is whatever you spend your money on, right? So when they spend money with me, and some people actually have sacrificed to be with me, but they succeeded down the line. And the dynamic is really, really different. And a lot of them do things voluntarily just for the joy of it. Like, oh, Kenneth, I'm helping you. Let's do this. The newsletters that I send out now are done by my voluntary team.
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't want to cross the line to exploitation as well. So basically, for me, it's okay. So every volunteer that I have, I actually say, okay, what's their potential? Like I do the org chart. And I basically, can any of these volunteers fit into this org chart where I can eventually pay or do some sort of deal with? So almost everybody that comes in, or the higher performing ones that comes in, I actually set a career path for them. Secretly. Basically, I don't tell them up front. I just see how they are. But I say, okay, this person might make a good JV manager. This person may make a good copywriter. This person may make a good Facebook ad person. But let's see how they run things. And usually I tell them, look, I don't have the funds that let's say Agora has, where I can just throw it at you and everything. But let's go through this process together. Let's grow together. And then we'll take it from there.
How do you screen people who even want to become a volunteer? What are you looking for in terms of key factors or what are red flags before they can even come in and be a volunteer now?
Yeah. I think the thing is when somebody pays you money, it's already a pre-screening process of some kind. That means they're not just kicking, because my rates are not cheap. Like all things considered, like, my starting package starts from $799 all the way up to $6,000, which means, and if you're, let's say, a Malaysian who comes in, let's say from my country and everything, $799 is times 4, which is what, $3,200. It's considered quite high ticket for that crowd. So basically, I don't screen. There's usually no red flags because red flags are usually for people who don't pay anything. Like usually if you pay something, there's a bit of seriousness to it and everything. And for me, it's like I let them run wild as long as they don't poach my students or try to create a business out of it. And that's really just the only thing. Everything else you can gather, you can do all those. But I do keep a close eye in case they try to poach the customers and everything.
There's thousands of people that approach you and approach me that they don't have any money, but they're willing to work for free. And they're hoping that when they're successful, they'll be able to pay. What do you do with those situations?
Generally, I say no immediately because I tell them, look, if you want to work with me, you have to join this program. Like that's it. That's your commitment level. And because I have flexible pay options, I even have 10 pay options. So, so I say at the very least, take the 10 pay option, show me you're serious, and then we'll work from there because I want to journey with, it's possible at a smaller scale. Once you hit 1,000 employees or something, it's probably a different ball game. But at this point in time, I know that every employee in information publishing business, every employee delivers you about potentially $500,000 to $1 million in sales or in revenues. If you actually do the benchmark, generally they do about that if your offer is converting and all those things. So for me, that's why I pick and choose my people. So I don't take people work for free. No.
How do you manage your time with so many people that must be approaching you, wanting to get free consulting or wanting to talk about their idea or wanting to work for you?
Here's something I learned from my mentor. And that's basically focus on just your mission and your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal.
BHAG.
Every rabbit trail you ignore. So don't chase any bright, shiny objects and everything. And so my evaluation when people come to me is, does this fulfill my BHAG? And does this fulfill my vision? And if not, I'm quite ruthless about it. Why? It's not so much because I'm arrogant or anything. It's really because my energy levels are so high. And time is precious. I lost so many loved ones this year. So if life is short, my energy is finite, then I can only, in a sense, take care of my 100 sheep, right? So Bible talks about the 99 and 100 sheep. But the missing lesson in that is basically you only have 100 sheep. You don't have 102, you don't have 105. You just take care of your flock. And I was like, okay, does this person fit into the flock? If not, I just say, no, you need to invest one of the programs so I can even we can even have a conversation and just leave it as that. And some people actually take the programs and like, okay, let's take the programs. And then now I can talk to, I know who you are. We can talk about partnering and all those things. So that is what I would do. Super smart.
Kenneth, I've enjoyed spending time with you. I feel like we could spend hours, especially I'd love to see you in Malaysia. One of my favorite places to be. I've been to KL multiple times. Who is the Holy Grail Copywriting program for? And tell us about what some of the components are and what kind of results you see of the students.
Okay, sure. Let's do that. So let's talk a bit about the concept of the Holy Grail first. So the Holy Grail is a legend from King Arthur about this artifact that King Arthur sacrificed his Knights of the Round Table for. So he was having Camelot was great, thriving and everything. But there was this object of desire that he wanted to obtain at all costs. And he threw the Knights of the Round Table. He himself went there and nearly all of them perished to obtain the Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail was where Jesus drank from the cup. In fact, a lot of the things associated with Jesus end up Holy Grails, like the spear of Longinus, which Hitler owns and everything. And so basically, right, the Holy Grail concept is, can you create those kinds of Holy Grail offers for yourself, for your business, for your service? And that for me was, because the thing about the human mind, right, is that it needs concrete things to focus on. Like it needs objects to focus on. So if we actually look at pop culture, like, in Avengers and in MCU, it was the Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh yes, with the 5 stones. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything was chasing after objects. If you actually think about the whole MCU thing, it was chasing after a stone or the Tesseract, or if you look at TV shows, it's about Lost, it's about the smoke monster and the island. So they're all about objects. And the more you can make your product, your service, even yourself, an object of desire, the more money you'll make.
To productize it.
Yes, to productize it. So So for instance, like I have a few Holy Grail offers, meaning I have this Holy Grail copywriting offer. I have another Holy Grail offer, which is about course creation and how I use my methodology to create courses that are profitable from the start, etc. And what I realized, right, if you're able to position your product so well that people just want it without hard selling, I don't do any hard selling at all, like no hard sell, no push. I mean, I do put a deadline, like basically, it makes sense. Okay, this is the deadline. You sign up, you get this bonus. If not, we part as friends. The only telephone calls that I did during that time, and bear in mind, I'm closing $6,000 packages, which I don't actually do many calls with the $6,000 and $10,000 package. Usually just a messenger, yes, no, questions, yes, no. And then I had to do telephone calls to convince people not to buy my package because they want to mortgage their house or they want to sell off their homes to join. I'm like, don't
That's
sell.
the Holy Grail.
Yeah, it's not going to solve
anything. You're that good. You're like the drug dealer in digital marketing.
Yeah, thank you. But I don't push my drugs on everyone. It's not fair. Like I realized that in the information product business, a lot of it is screening the right people to join your program. And desperation is a really huge drug that if you pay $27 or $99 for the program, I don't mind. Like if my last result at $20, fine. That's $20 you can afford to lose that. But if you want to pay $6,000 and say, okay, I'm mortgaging this and I'm giving up my future, I'm like, nah, you're not in that position. I like people usually to give out of a disposable income. Generally, like you are in business and this is your budget, put it with me. So I have people who train their teams with Holy Grail copywriting. So basically, okay, this is an investment. I want to see it as an investment, not as salvation. So that's the Holy Grail. So the difference between Holy Grail copywriting, all the other copywriting courses, is the fact that I focus a lot on the offer creation side. Like say when you have a Holy Grail offer, a lot of things change. Like even on the meta level, like Holy Grail copywriting, ClickBank actually approached me and basically say, hey, I'm promoting you. So instead of, we're not affiliates for ClickBank. ClickBank wants to be my affiliate because of the results I have given. So if you actually have an offer and you actually have the results, like really, okay, this is the earnings per click of, $10 or $15 or you get your AOV, that getting partners is easy. And so for me, everything I do is designed about, let's get the Holy Grail offer, let's get the numbers, and then everything else is easy. Then even driving traffic is easy. Like you basically just say, okay, if I really know these numbers, I know how much to do for traffic, et cetera. So the Holy Grail copywriting system, it's an entire system. It's a series of frameworks where you can use to just create valuable products or service and then expressing that through copywriting. The copywriting side is, of course, we have the templates, the bullet points, the headlines, almost like the science part of it, the left brains part of it. But there's a very right brain part of it, which is the big ideas. How do you create angles? And so basically it's a marriage of those two things. Most people fall under more of the left brain side of things.
Tell me, what is the difference between what you put in a $27 offer versus a $6,000 offer?
The funny thing, right, is we live in a world today where the offer is more or less the same. And the $27 is more to acquire a lead more than an actual customer, in the sense of 90% of the people won't consume your product, or 95% of the people won't actually consume a $27 product. You need to work a lot harder because people are just, I would say people are cynical. The funny thing is the $6,000 offer, people are not cynical. If they say, I want to go with you, I'm convinced I want to go with you. That's the beauty of high ticket. But when it's a $27, there's so much convincing that you need to do upfront. And so the amount of work and even sometimes the amount of content may actually be the same. Just that one is self-study, one isn't. It's actually the same amount of, right? It's just, that's how human beings are. Even like my mastermind offer, people have paid $6,000, right? And 6,000 is actually not that much money. I know you have 10, 15,000 in the industry and everything. But people hasn't showed up for any of our mastermind meetings at 6,000. They just pay. And then they just.
Do you have people ever say, hey, I bought your high ticket offer and it's the same thing that's in your low ticket offer? It's you.
A lot of times, like when it's a low ticket offer, like say where your treasure is, where your heart is, right? So if you pay $27 or something, you may not even know what your access code, or you might even forget you bought it in the first place. It happens throughout. Like even, I have like $397 offers or $997 offers. Some people never even went through the first module and they paid me that money. So So I just find it so random. Like human nature is such. But you work with the numbers, I guess.
Yeah. Incredible insight from someone who knows how to sell info products. Kenneth Yu, thank you so much for being on the show. How do people find out more about you and reach you?
You can either find me out I'm active on Facebook, less so on the other medium. So Kenneth Yu, you will find me. I have a hat over there. And then in terms of the Knights of the Holy Grail is attentionempire.com/SM. So that's for social media, SM. It's a 5-day free training where you get all these Holy Grail principles. And my approach to information publishing is I offer abundance and I attract you with value and values. So the value in terms of what I provide and values in terms of you resonate with me, therefore you want to join me for WYODC, the WYODC movement, which stands for write your own damn check. So basically it talks about, I want to create a bunch of financially independent people who sees financial destiny into their own hands, ignoring what the government is doing, whatever the shutdowns are. You can make money regardless of circumstances. And that's how I bring people in to join me in WYODC.
Amen. Kenneth, thank you so much for being on the Coach U Show, and thank you on behalf of my community.
Thanks for having me as well. It's great to meet the fellow you finally.